What I'm about to cover in this video is pretty much the difference between the clients that I have that are scaling from 500 grand a month to a million a month without even really thinking about it, compared to the clients that I have that, they get to that 50 to 100 grand a month mark and then they all of a sudden, don't know what the problem is and they just can't scale anymore. And to be honest, it's also the thing that stops people from even getting to that level in the first place. I've been thinking this was a problem for people for probably a number of years. But when I really realized that this was the biggest problem was when I was at an acquisition.com workshop a few months ago. I got the chance to ask Layla one question, and I was thinking about it for a little while. I was thinking, I'm going to get one chance to ask a question. What's going to be the best question? I don't want to ask some BS that's been on YouTube. I don't want to ask something that, she just constantly gets asked or, is super repetitive. So I really thought about it for about a day. I was like, what's a question I could ask that is impossible to figure out outside of, the one chance that I get to ask a real question. So I avoided any of the things that were like, hey, how do I hire a sales team? How do I recruit a sales manager? Any of the typical stuff. The question that I asked her was, obviously she started out being, 22, 23-year-old, kind of an alcoholic, didn't really do anything productive. And then within the span of, 5 to 10 years, she'd become a really strong CEO that had led a couple of big companies. So I was wondering, what was the thing that allowed her specifically to continually progress faster and faster without really ever having, long periods of plateau? And like I said, this is the problem that people have, is they reach a certain level, then they kind of move away from what got them there, and they start plateauing and they can't figure out what the problem is. So I was like, how did you avoid that? And I was really surprised by the answer, because I thought it would be, something normal or something like, oh yeah, we just did this. There was all this tactical stuff that I did that fixed it. But when she responded, it was like she knew the exact answer before I'd even finished my sentence. And she said, the thing that has allowed me to progress so quickly was purely emotional control. And I was like, what the fuck is this? How is emotional control going to help you scale a business to 100 mil? But when she got into it, I started kind of understanding it, because she was saying something to the tune of, yeah, well, there are a lot of times when there's just stuff that you have to do in your business that you don't really want to do, but you have to see yourself and the business as a separate entity and almost treat it as a baby, where of course I'm going to do that for my business. Of course I'm going to sacrifice this for my business. Of course I'm going to spend, this amount of time doing this task that I really hate for my business, because it's my business. It's like my baby. And she said the thing that bottlenecks a lot of people is they just can't separate the emotions from their behavior. So they consistently get ruled by their emotions. But when you really think about it, it's kind of the exact same way that if you're an overweight person, of course you're going to get that impulse to go ahead and get KFC or go and buy a cake. Sometimes in business, people call this going with your gut. But that doesn't always mean that listening to your lizard brain or going with your gut or just going with how you feel is a good idea. Especially in business where you have a bit more leverage, the decisions you make are absolutely crucial. Especially when you're thinking of, hey, should I fire that guy? Hey, should I go to this location? Should I go to that networking event? Should I start this new acquisition channel? But things like making bad purchases or impulsively firing someone are just bad decisions that your lizard brain is telling you, because the whole process of business is stressful itself. So of course you're going to want to make impulsive decisions. It reminds me of when I used to do a lot of running. I used to be, I was trying to make a professional football team in Australia, and I used to train really hard with my cardio. And the thing was, every single time I used to go for a run, about 6 to 12 minutes in, I was always like, oh, my back's sore, my knee's sore. This feels terrible. I'm going to have to stop soon. And the only thing that ever got me through those times was because I preemptively decided that I wasn't going to quit, because I realized every time I was doing a run, I got really tired or really sore about eight minutes in. And the only thing that helped me get rid of that was because I preemptively decided, hey, I know every time I go for a run, there's going to be an impulse for me to stop. So I'm just going to preempt that and say, when I get the impulse to stop, I'm just going to say, don't quit. So I thought to myself, as soon as I get the thought to quit, I'm going to override that manually and say, no, this is just the part where it gets stressful or gets hard. This is what it's supposed to feel like. I'm going to keep going anyway. Now, I was never a marathon runner, but I think my 5K PB was about 18 minutes 50. So it's not bad. I actually got quite good. And it's the same with running a business. Anytime you feel panicked, you really have to regulate your emotions and figure out what is going on here and what is causing this feeling. Do I need to meditate? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to go to therapy? Do I need to watch a Tony Robbins motivational post? To be honest, it doesn't even matter what you do to regulate yourself. The only problem is if you start acting, like I said in one of my previous videos, like a child and acting in an emotional manner. The reason for this is because if you're all up and down all the time, your team is never going to respect you. Your clients are never going to respect you. And worst of all, you are going to make terrible decisions like firing that guy just because you feel like they weren't doing much work, or starting that new acquisition channel because you feel like you're not booking that many calls, or even just not pursuing something that you know you need to do because you don't feel like doing it. For example, doing your prospecting, doing your outreach, or running those ads because you're fearful of doing that, or you just don't have the discipline to do so. Like I said before, it all circles back to, this is your business, and this is something that you have to treat with care and nourishment. Like if you knew your baby had to eat every day at 3 p.m. and get to bed by 8 p.m., you would just put the baby to sleep at that time. But when it comes to doing your prospecting, which is feeding your baby and nourishing your baby, or getting to bed on time so you can be focused the next day, it becomes a lot different. If you've ever wondered why people make really blunt decisions and then just say, it's just business, that's because when it comes to business, you have to remove the emotion from the equation to optimize for what is best for the company. So ask yourself, do you reckon that phrase, it's just business, came from thin air? Or do you think it's because people learn that you really have to extract the emotion from it and then act stoically? So if any of these things sound familiar, like, I feel like we should fire this guy, he's not doing any work, or I feel like we should be booking more calls, or I feel like I'm working so hard, why are we not getting more results? Or even, I hate my clients, they're all stupid and know nothing, we need a new niche. Here's what you do. Number one, premeditate the fact that stuff is going to be hard and nothing is ever going to work as efficiently as you want it to. You just have to strive for that perfect level. Number two, make sure you install tracking systems so instead of just going with your gut, you actually have some type of compass you can use to make decisions. An example of this is tracking how many calls you book, tracking the output of your employees, catching up with them to see if they're working well or they feel like they're behind. Because without this stuff, it's literally like you're floating through space trying to use some, janky compass trying to figure out where to go. When in reality, that just means you have no idea where the fuck you're going at any point. So you need to install the tracking and then look at the tracking to be able to make decisions. Then circling back to the thing that Layla said was when you have your tracking and when you decide that this is the direction that you're going to go to, instead of just coping and saying, the reason I didn't do that was because of X, Y, Z, I'm building systems, I'm building product, or I'm doing this other thing that doesn't make me money, I'm just going to do it because that's the thing that's best for the company. And it's one of those things where you probably know what you need to do. If you know you want to grow on Instagram, you probably know you have to stay consistent and post. If you want to start running paid ads, you probably know that you have to turn a campaign on and then test a bunch of ad creatives. But it's a classic thing that you know what you need to do and then you just don't do it. And the best thing that I've found for this, for myself, is you just have to separate your company from you as an entity. This isn't your income. This isn't just, a regular day in the life thing that you just, if I skip the gym, it's okay. This is an actual entity. If you have employees, you have people that you're feeding, it is your moral responsibility to put your business before yourself. Obviously, that doesn't mean you need to burn yourself out and work 50 hours a day. But if you're sitting at your desk and getting nothing done, you have to think to yourself, why is this occurring and how do I solve this? And simply put, that just means you have to stop avoiding the work. So like I said, if that means you have to go watch a Tony Robbins seminar, go for a walk, go for a meditate, or literally go to therapy to fix whatever inner burdens you have, just do that because I guarantee you this is the thing that's holding you back. It's kind of a mix of number one, you have that emotional side where you don't want to do stuff and you have to have discipline. And then number two, there's the decision-making part of it where you have to track and then make those decisions that can help you override that emotion, if you know what I'm saying. So the tracking allows you to know for a fact that you're making the right decision, and then that helps you remove the emotion. So set up your tracking, make a plan, and then stick to the plan.